Good morning. Today's guest on the Sunday Show is Dr. Véronique Desaulniers, aka Dr. V. Dr. V is the founder of Breast Cancer Conqueror in America, and she's the creator of the 7 Essentials system. The aim of the Sunday Show is always to provide our viewers with tips and information that are highly usable, and so they can put them into their own cancer fighting program and increase their personal odds of survival. Today's going to be no exception. So I'm very, very pleased to welcome Dr. V. And good morning, and thank you for joining me. Good evening, Florida. Good evening.
Yes, good evening. So thank you so much for having me. I've been a fan of yours for many years. I've read your material. I love your website and your articles. Your research-based information. We're definitely on the same page.
Yeah, you're just the same, aren't you? Your new book's got loads of research, and it's 600, 700.
700 things, yes. Research, evidence-based medicine, natural medicine. That's where it's at.
I had the opportunity to talk to about 100 and something oncologists a couple of years ago, and only 3 got up and walked out. And I was literally doing why do you say there's no evidence? Why do you say there's no research for diet and exercise programs and so on? And, it's very sad in Britain. I mean, you get this wall against you all the time. Anyway, I noticed also you had a butterfly as your logo. And I think our butterfly is Catherine as well. So it's nice. Let me just get straight into it. We get questions from our viewers. And so let me ask those, and then I'll chip in around the outside, if that's all right with you. Okay. The first one was really about the basics. I mean, when you first had breast cancer yourself in 2004, would you like to tell listeners what it was exactly?
Well, I never had a biopsy. I never had a mammogram, and so I don't know a name for it. But I did blood work and various kinds of tests that confirmed that it was breast cancer. There was a lump, and I'd been in the wellness industry for 23 years as a chiropractor. At that time, I was in a practice, and I was helping women and men from literally all over the world to improve their health. And here I was, Dr. V, the wellness warrior, facing a lump in her left breast. So it was quite an eye-opener, and I had to ask myself, what has allowed the cancer to develop? Because I was eating organic before organic was in style. I breastfed my children. I was leading a very healthy, active life. Yet here I was faced with breast cancer. So that led me down the rabbit hole of research and soul searching. And I recognized, there were pieces of the puzzle that I had missed. And I really had to go back to the drawing board and apply these healing principles to myself.
And one of our questions was from Fiona Shaquila Burns, and she said, did you have any orthodox treatments whatsoever, conventional treatments?
I chose not to, because
surgery, nothing.
No surgery, no chemo, no radiation, because I saw the outcome in my practice. I saw patients who had traditional treatments versus those who chose not to, and there was night and day difference, and the outcome was very different. And I understood the principles of natural health and natural medicine. I mean, I'd been in the industry for 23 years, so I know the power of the body's ability to heal. I know how powerful natural medicine is, and so there was no doubt in my mind that I would pursue any other course.
So you had gotten rid of it by 2006, and you were given an all clear by a doctor at that time, yeah? So
yes.
What was your reaction to this? It's all over, a wake-up call, surprised you ever got it, scared that it might come back? What was your feelings about it?
Well, it was, I knew that I would get well. So of course, obviously there's a sense of relief that you passed that milestone, but at the same time, I also understood that cancer is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just a symptom. So I had to be very aware of my lifestyle going forward and really stay on top of my health.
What did you think was wrong with your lifestyle? What did you think? I've been doing this wrong. I've been doing that wrong.
Yeah, there was a lot of stress. I was in a very unhappy relationship, an unhappy marriage. I was raising 3 children. I had a very busy practice, and I just did not take care of myself. I was taking care of everybody else. And that often happens with healthcare providers and women in general.
I always say to people when I do personal prescriptions that people build a body over about a 6 to 10 year period, a body that's conducive to cancer. And my aim is to build a body conducive to health. And it comes as a bit of a shock to quite a lot of people. They think they got it from a passing bus last week. It's really weird, you know. And
No,
but it's a long-term thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. It takes a long time. And, you know, if you want to fast forward to my second healing journey in 2015, so here I was known as the Breast Cancer Conqueror. I'd started sharing my healing journey with women all around the world. And here I was, you know, facing another lump in my left breast. But my gut told me, I knew that it was happening again because I was overworked. I was coaching women one-on-one with breast cancer from sun up to sundown. I had some issues with my thyroid. My hormones were out of balance. I had cavitations and some dental issues that needed to be addressed. And I was neglecting my health, you know, just trying to take care of everybody else. And so the second time round took me about 3 years to heal. And it was life-changing in the fact that I realized that I would never go back there again. I refused to allow myself to be stressed. I set boundaries when it comes to work. I've learned to be happy every day and just really, never allow myself to get to the point of stress.
Do you think you're the sort of person who puts yourself bottom of the list?
Oh, that's pretty typical, but I've changed that.
I think I put myself bottom of the list. I think, you know, I just spend my whole life in a daze at the moment because it's so busy with COVID and cancer and so on. But there is that is a kind of symptom, isn't it, of people who help others? There
is. And, you know, Dr. Douglas Brody, who studied cancer patients for 20 years, came up with what he calls a cancer personality. And that's one of the traits. You take care of other people before yourself. You don't know how to deal with stress in a good way. You don't have good relationships with your spouse or your parents. And, there's a list of 4 or 5 things, but it's very typical of the cancer personality.
Madeline Kingsley, she's one of our journalists, or our journalist now. She said, what was the decision to go for natural treatment negative, i.e. a feeling that conventional medicine was too damaging, or positive in that you were innately drawn to natural remedies?
Positive, because I was innately drawn and because I'd seen the effects of traditional medicine. And my father died of pancreatic cancer, and that was really what opened the cancer door for me. He was given 6 weeks to live, given absolutely no hope, and sent home to die. And he died within that day of 6 weeks. You know, he was given that diagnosis, right? You're going to be dead in 6 weeks, and he bought into it. But I knew that there was something that could have been done for him. And so this was like 1983, before the internet. I went to the library, called cancer hospitals, which were few and far between back then, and realized there was something that could have been done. So, that lit a fire in me, and I started applying these principles and teaching my patients that, you don't need to fear cancer. It's a symptom. It's not the cause.
Madeline and about 4 other people asked the same question. She said, how did you find the confidence to write your own recovery plan? And how did you deal with any resistance from family, friends, and the medical profession who challenged your regime choice?
Well, interestingly, I did not have that much resistance, a bit from some of my colleagues, but my family was obviously on board. And, I did my research. I knew the evidence was there, and I had such confidence in my body's ability to heal that there was no doubt that it was going to be successful.
Are you finding any changes in America because of COVID? In the sense, in Britain, we've had, I don't know what happened last March. COVID hit Britain, and all the oncologists seemed to disappear. So a lot of my patients were actually told, oh, sorry, you can't have the chemo. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I can't have the chemo, can't do this, can't do that. And they were left on their own. And that prompted us to be swamped. and we have got half a dozen people who are completely all clear. And it's been quite interesting because they've literally not been seen by their oncologists. Have you noticed the change over the last year? Because I'm fearful that actually the empire is striking back at the moment, and patients are now being told much more sort of take it or leave it by the doctor.
And definitely the screenings that women would normally go for with mammograms, which I don't know that that's such a bad thing, but you know, the screenings, the oncologist visits, the doctor visits, you know, there's been a decrease in cancer diagnosis as a result of COVID, because people were not allowed to go to the hospitals or to their doctor's offices, and you know, therefore there's been less screening.
Mm, mm. You mentioned thermography. One of our people was very surprised to go for thermography in Britain, and they then said, but we want a mammogram to compare it against. So now we can go on forward doing thermography, and then if anything goes wrong, we can change it. You can have a mammogram then. Is that the same thing in America?
No, I think thermography, although I don't think it's a standalone tool for screening, because I always encourage women to back it up with ultrasound, so that you have, you know, two pictures of the body. Thermography, I mean, I was certified in thermography in 2005, and I love thermography. It's been, you know, it's a great tool. I use it. I get screened every year. I encourage our clients to get screened as well, to monitor themselves. But at the same time, it's not 100, you know, there's nothing that's 100% effective, right? So back it up with ultrasound, or back it up with some type of blood work, whether it's inflammatory markers or circulating tumor cells or that sort of thing.
All right, that's interesting. So you do use other systems then to test, like circulating cancer cells and so on?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I just had a lady who came back for a follow-up, and she said, I didn't tell you, she said, but before the PP per subscription I did, she said I was 1,500, and she said, so I decided to do it again. I've only done your stuff, which was totally natural. She said, I've only done your stuff, and now I'm back to 250.
Wow.
So it was in 3 months. So I mean, the effects, do you find this? The effects can be quite quick. I always say nothing will happen in the first month, but then it can really take off. Do you find that?
It varies. You know, I see women who can heal in 6 months, and I see some that are still on their journey in 4 or 5 years. I think emotions, and I know that was one of the questions that came up. You know, the emotions, to me, if I were to rewrite my 7 essentials, I would put emotions, heal your emotional wounds, as number 1. That was key for me in my first and second healing journeys. But I find that, you know, no matter how many pills you take, you know, what therapies you do, how many enemas you do, if your heart and your mind are not 1000% convinced that your body has the ability to heal, and that you deserve to heal and be well, then sometimes there's that inner conflict, and we know that inner conflict can really tax the body physically.
Do you ever have people where, I mean, right, back here, I always think I can heal everybody. That's my start point. I always think it's totally possible to heal everybody.
Right.
But you do get some, and you get some people, and you just think this is out of control. I don't know how to stop it. Do you think that? I always tell them. I mean, I give them other alternatives, but do you get some occasions when you really think this is out of control, and I'm not too sure how to stop this?
There are times when I feel that, yes, things are getting out of control, and you know, there's a fine line where women, well, with my clients, they feel that if they mix Western medicine with natural medicine, that they're failing, that they want to go, you know, 100% natural. But sometimes you have to dabble in that Western medicine to help you put the fire out. And I've seen women in stage 4, Mets to the bones, do, you know, some spot radiation, do some low dose chemotherapy, IPT, and it's given their body a chance to recuperate. You know, it kills some of the cancer, puts some of the fire out, and they can come back from that, you know, and of course add a lot of additional natural therapies on top of that. So it's not a black and white situation for me. You know, we do whatever it takes to allow the patient to recover and get well.
I think there are some cancers where they are more difficult. I mean, I deal in all cancers. I had Dr. Julian Kenyon, we were talking about the gut microbiome, and he said to me, I can't remember whether he said it on screen or off screen, and he said to me, I wish people with colorectal cancer would come straight to me because I want to do a fecal transplant and just correct the colon.
Right.
And
Right.
I have this feeling about colorectal cancer that I'm sorry to have to say it, doctors, but the more drugs people get given with colorectal cancer and the more they get pushed down this line, the surgery and everything else, the harder it takes, the harder it is to heal them naturally, to find a solution.
Totally.
Do you ever find situations where, in fact, they've had too many drugs?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, sometimes we have women coming to us who've been to the oncologist, they've done the chemo, they've done the radiation, their vitamin D levels are extremely low, and they're just barely hanging on, and it takes a lot of energy to turn things around. However, it can turn around, and I always tell our community, there's always hope. You know, if there's life and there's breath and there's belief, there's hope.
Why do you think it is in America, I can only talk about Britain, that oncologists have certain traumas themselves, like they won't talk to you about vitamin D and things like this? Natural, they won't talk to you about diet. They just don't know about diet. So they actually do something I used to hate in advertising, account directors who kind of told a client rubbish when they actually could have gone away and looked it up and then given them the correct answer. And they will say, you know, diet's got nothing to do with it, or
Eat what you want. Eat what you want.
yeah.
Eat your ice cream. Eat your donuts. Go to any chemotherapy suite. What do they serve? Coke and donuts and candy. So
But why do you think? Do you get the same in America? You say, what about vitamin D? And they shrug their shoulders. You know, you can't have too much; it'll poison your liver. Do you get that in America?
Oh, definitely. And you know, you have patients going to oncologists where, you know, they were stage 4, now they're well, and rather than ask them, what did you do? I want to be able to help my other patients. They send them out of the office, make them feel bad, and tell them never to come back again. So it's no different. You know, it's big pharma, it's the power. They're like this, they're myopic, and they feel threatened. However, if their heart is in the right place, I really believe that that's when there's a little opening in the door, and that's when they start taking information in. And you know, slowly we're seeing more doctors that are becoming more integrative and more balanced in their approach.
You wrote a book. We follow very similar pathways, you know. So we almost started in the same time as well. Yeah, you wrote a book, Heal Breast Cancer Naturally. Right, you're on the 2nd edition now. All right, was there a moment you decided to write it? Was there something that happened?
When I started, after I sold my practice in 2010, and I kind of took a few years to figure out what chapter 2 would be like in my life. I started, you know, several of my friends and my family was saying, share your healing journey with breast cancer. People need to know that you can heal cancer naturally. Threw up a website, and then one thing led to another, you know, very similar to you. Never imagined I'd be doing what I'm doing now. And women were asking, do you have a book? Do you have, you know, something I could read that would help me? And that was the instigation to write the first book. And then after going through, you know, my second healing journey, that was the, you know, instigation to write the second one, because things had changed a lot in 9 years.
All right, then again, from my end as well, it's a huge jump between writing a book and then building, well, in your case, a huge support group. I know. When and how did that come about? Was that just a natural slide, or did you think, right, I'm going to, you know, bring
it was a natural progression. I mean, I started off with, you know, one team member, and then needed to add another one, and you know, now we have 5 people. And We've coached women in 57 countries, and you know, the need is there. So how can you stop, right? The need is there.
Do you call them coaches? Then you do, don't you? They're not naturopaths or anything like that. They're coaches.
No, yeah, they're nurses. The ones that the coaches that I have are nurses.
Are they all
and,
ladies?
I trained them. I trained them and I certified them in my 7 essential system. So they're like mini Dr. V's basically.
So they conform to your beliefs, do they?
Absolutely, yeah.
I get approached all the time by naturopaths and things like that saying, can we come and help you and things like that. And I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to pinch. I don't have a program, right? Because I think slightly different for me because I deal in all cancers. I think everybody's different. So right. I kind of, I build something different for everybody. But
right.
It's how do you hold on to them? Because perhaps it's slightly different, but my people all want to kind of learn and go straight away and take that knowledge with them. I mean, if they do that, would you see that as a threat, or would you be proud that there were more people out there doing what you do?
Oh yeah, no, not a threat at all. I mean, more power to them if that's what they want to do. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, even though 7 Essentials is a registered trademark, I mean, it's the same basic principles. I mean, you teach the same thing, it's just under a different name.
So let's talk about the 7 Essentials. Do you want to run through them and tell us what the 7 are?
Okay, so essential number 1 is let food be your medicine, right? You talk about the rainbow diet, right?
Yes, you do, but you talk about eat a rainbow. I don't talk about, I'm rainbow diet to me is colourful Mediterranean diet. So it's slightly different. I remember Ty Bollinger had some big guy with a t-shirt, whatever, throwing fruit into a blender, going, "Here's a rainbow diet," and I was like, "No, please," because it's full of sugar. You know?
Right, exactly.
Anyway,
exactly.
Eat a rainbow. Yes, okay.
Yes, and there's no cookie cutter diet. It's not just vegan and it's not just carnivore. There's balance in between. You know, I firmly believe that based on our genetics, our blood type, that everybody needs to adapt their diet based on, you know, what their body needs. There's no cookie cutter diet. Number 2 is to reduce your toxic exposure. We live in a toxic world. We can't live in a bubble, but there's many things that you can do to, you know, make sure that your environment is clean chemically. You know, you can protect your environment from EMFs. You can look at what you put on your skin, in your body. There's lots of things that you can do to detox as well. Number 3 is to balance your energy. We're energetic beings, right? We're 1 billionth physical matter. The rest is all energy. So balance your sleep, balance your exercise, balance your hormones. And I believe you wrote a book on estrogen as well. So your hormones do not cause cancer. Right? It's all the chemical estrogens around us and our body's ability to methylate or metabolize those estrogens that's important. Number 4 is to heal the emotional wounds. Number 5 is biological dentistry. What you have in your mouth is going to affect your body. Number 6 are all the therapeutic plants and herbs that we use to heal the body. And 7 is all the different types of tests for early detection and to keep a pulse on your health. While you're going through your healing journey, don't just rely on the typical traditional cancer tests that your doctor gives you. There's, you know, tests that you can do for circulating tumor cells, check your inflammatory markers, your vitamin D levels. Those things are all important.
They're all very, very interesting. We could talk for hours on each one. I think the dentistry one, you know, it almost suddenly comes out of the blue for me when I read your list. And I find it fascinating because when Catherine got her brain tumor, it was one of the things you come up against all the time. It keeps talking about dentistry and root canals. My mum, when I was a little boy, if I had a cough, used to give me a cough sweet when I was in bed at night. Just suck that, you'll be all right. Because I've got rotten teeth. And so I went to my dentist and said, you know, can you deal with my fillings and everything else? And he was a very expensive dentist, the Star, so they're all capped. Cost me a lot of money. But he said how risky it is for people to have dental changes. He said it was really, he said probably 1 in 20, 1 in 30 dentists could deal with it, but the other 29 couldn't because, you know, you can spread the mercury everywhere. But in fact, science is moving this way because we now know that the microbiome in the mouth actually determines the microbiome in the gut to a large extent, which determines your health and illness. So it's really important. What's your recommendation to people? Go and get your teeth fixed? What is it?
Get your teeth fixed, but only work with a certified biological dentist who uses the right equipment, uses a rubber dam, uses the filtration system, uses vitamin C IV while you're getting the treatments. Because mercury is a metalloestrogen, aluminum, nickel, metalloestrogen, so they'll mimic and stimulate estrogen in the body. You've got to get that out of your system, and of course do a detox, a metal detox, heavy metal detox afterwards, and also look at inflammatory markers. There's a DNA test you can do just with the saliva to check for the bacteria in your mouth. Check for cavitations, and that was part of my issue with my second healing journey. I had 4 cavitations that I had no idea I had, and those will drip toxins into your system, and one of them, interestingly, was on number 14, which is left breast meridian. That's
really interesting. I think I've got this horrible feeling that in America you're pulling away from Britain. I mean, biological dentistry, I'm sure people are going to write to me after the show, but I don't know that it exists in Britain. I don't know that we've got dentists who take that much trouble the way you just described it.
Yeah, they don't. We're fortunate that we do have some good certified biological dentists. I mean, some of them even wear, it looks like they're wearing hazmat suits. I mean, they're very, very careful.
All right, let's talk about food. You talk about not one diet for everybody. So would you say you're really talking about a plant-based diet? So it's plant-based, but it's still got some meat in it. And how do you ring the changes between different people?
Well, plant-based, definitely. Lots of vegetables, minimal fruit. If you do eat protein, make sure that
we've got the same script. That's exactly what I say to people. Exactly. They all look at me, I can't have fruit. I say, yes, you can have fruit, but not too much. I always say, think ratatouille, don't think fruit,
Right. Berries, limes, lemons, that sort of thing. Green apples occasionally. If you do eat protein, make sure that it's pasture raised, grass fed, organic, no antibiotics, that sort of thing. And you don't need a piece bigger than a small piece of, a deck of cards, so to speak. There's a test. There's several tests, but one of them is nutrition genome, which looks at your DNA and what foods would best support the weaknesses in your DNA. So that's very helpful for people as well.
So that test comes from the whole concept of metabolic typing, does it? I mean, because there were several books done on metabolic typing. Nick Gonzalez was using it as well. So this is a simpler version of it, is it?
I don't know that it's metabolic typing as it is more looking at your DNA SNPs and your weaknesses and what your body needs to be stronger based on the.
Do things like that cost a lot of money?
No, that test is a few $100s. It's not. Do you have
an exercise program? You've recommended a sort of diet? Would you recommend to people an exercise program or not?
Move your body. Move your body. That's the most important thing. And for women who are physically able to, high intensity exercise, 2 minutes hard, 1 minute off. Light weights, moderate weights, get out in the sunshine, breathe fresh air, but move your body every day, at least 20 to 30 minutes.
But you and I are lucky. You're in Florida and I'm in Thailand. So getting out in the sunshine is very easy. We must apologize to all my listeners in Britain who are in the snow.
And gray. I know. I have several clients in the UK. I feel so bad for them. Or in the northern states or in Canada. It's so cold.
Do you ever feel like you need to add an 8th? You've got 7 essentials, but do you ever feel as the more you learn, you want to add an 8th?
No.
Nope.
I can add to what I'm always updating, each of the essentials, but no, I don't think. I think it's pretty complete, unless do you have a thought or suggestion?
No. I find I'm constantly moving forward.
Right.
And there was a sort of eureka moment just recently, about 6 weeks ago, when I was looking at how the gut works. And I realized that actually there's the gut wall and there's the gut lining.
Yes.
And we have done a lot on the gut lining, and we use butyrate for the gut wall and so on. And it all comes from that sandwich. When I say it all comes, butyrate activates vitamin D in there, and the whole immune system is the first place that receives viruses and things like this. And so immunoglobulin A sends messages off around the body. And I suddenly realized there was a sandwich there, and I thought, almost wanted to add another category into what I do. So,
how that could be number 8.
Yeah, that's right. How to preserve the sandwich. But I've got a question from Dr. William Jones of Perth. He said, if you had breast cancer in 2004 and then a new lump in 2015, looking back, given you were the breast cancer conqueror, how did you reconcile that? I'm not too sure.
That
I
was
think
tough.
trying to get you. I think.
That was very tough. That was very tough. A lot of shame, a lot of guilt. Went through phases where I had to ask myself, am I a fraud? Does the system really work? Is my work even worth continuing? But as I moved forward in my healing journey and I started peeling more of the layers, I realized that I'm human, and I got off track, and I didn't tell anybody in my family. Obviously my family knew, a few close friends. And then one of my visions as I was going through my second healing journey that pulled me forward was the day where I would stand on the stage and tell my community, I was at a retreat where I had gone through a second healing journey, and now I was successful. I had done it again, a second time. And that happened in 2018. I hosted a retreat in Atlanta. We had almost 200 women there, and came out of the closet, so to speak. And it was a great feeling, because I could tell them, I'm no different than you. I've been through it again. I'm human, and life happens.
Tell me about retreats. What's a retreat to you? Because I'm sure it sounds like it might be different to what a retreat is in Britain now. How long do you go for? What do you cover? What sort of experts you have?
Well, they were, before COVID, they were 3 days long, and it was me teaching, and I would bring in some guest speakers, other doctors, and on each of the essentials. We do a lot of exercises in the sense of not physical exercises, but the women would break out in smaller groups, and I would have sheets of paper where they would answer questions about their emotions, or what would they commit to in the next 6 months to change, and how would they improve, and just a lot of deep emotional work that we did. It was just wonderful. So now I've shifted from live retreats to virtual retreats, and we basically do the same thing. And I mean, we've had women from 25 countries in our retreats, and we've had thousands of women register. And women want connection. They need community when they're going through a healing journey, especially if they're using natural medicine. They feel like the Lone Ranger, because their family, sometimes their spouse, their doctors don't understand them, and they need that community support. As a matter of fact, just not to segue, but there's a study that I often mention when it comes to community. There was a study, an 11-year study done on women with breast cancer. And they found that if women, number one, learned to reduce their stress, and number two, had community support, they had a life expectancy of, it was like 75% decreased risk of breast cancer compared to other women. So just those two factors of learning to reduce your stress and having community support would decrease your risk of dying from breast cancer by 75%.
That's incredible.
That's pretty powerful.
We unfortunately have Cancer Research UK, which is the dominant charity in Britain. Gets lots of money from drugs companies and so on. And they are just adamant. There was a moment for about a year when they kind of put a little piece of research up. But they're basically adamant that stress has got nothing to do with cancer. And I just find it lunatic. And as a biochemist, I just say to people from England, I can prove it. If you want me to prove it, it's just ridiculous.
Absolutely.
I had 3 ladies, this will interest you. I had 3 ladies in a row. It was like the film Groundhog Day. And they were all roly-poly 6-year-olds, and they were all headmistresses. They all had ER positive breast cancer. And a year and a half before they got their cancer, I would say something tips you over the edge. And in their case, their mum had died, and their mum lived just round the corner. So it wasn't just their mum that died, it was their best friend who died.
Right.
And that, the shock that was just huge on their bodies. So, I mean, do you find that emotional stress is the biggest issue, do you think? I mean, I look at your website and it's almost the first thing I come to.
Yeah, I really, that's the instigator, because if your body is pumping out adrenaline, cortisol, you're on the fight or flight mode, your nerve system is sympathetic dominant, you're turning on all these pathways that are going to turn on cancer genes and turn off the things that help to support your immune system. So absolutely, there's been, like, Nature magazine a few years ago showed that if you're sympathetic dominant, you're going to have a higher risk for metastasis, and here's why. And they went through all the cancer pathways, and it's so black and white.
Do you yourself worry about pathways when you talk to your people?
I don't.
Let me explain. It's become all the vogue in Britain because of a lady called Jane McClelland, who's using all these off-label drugs, and this drug can work on this pathway and this drug can work on this pathway. And actually, I think she's, unfortunately, I don't think she intended to, but she's causing endless grief to lots of people who I can't fix my BRAF pathway. And she creates a kind of a feeling of fault in some people that they can't fix it. Do you worry about your pathway? I don't.
No, I don't get into a lot of specifics about pathways. I just keep it very simple. If you live a high carbohydrate lifestyle, it's going to turn on certain pathways that are going to promote cancer growth. If you're more sympathetic dominant and you're more stressed out, yes, it's going to stimulate adrenaline and cortisol, and that's going to suppress your immune system. So I don't really dig down into those pathways, because I don't think it's important for them to know.
No, I agree totally. All right, so you got the second cancer. This is from a lady called Laura Dean. You got rid of the second cancer in 2018. So what's your feeling this time? Do you now feel it's gone? What do you tell women who've got this nagging feeling in the back of their heads, if they're standing in front of you, that theirs might come back one day? What do you say?
Well, you have to stay on top of your health, and you have to test to make sure that you're moving in the right direction. So every year, I get a thermogram, ultrasound. I do my inflammatory markers, my vitamin D levels every 6 months. I also check my circulating tumor cells with the RGCC test, or the grease test, and everything is stable. If there's a little peak in something, or my vitamin D level's low, then I know I need to adjust. So you don't just stop and say, okay, I'm going to be okay for the rest of my life. It's a lifestyle. You have to keep monitoring to make sure that you're staying on top of your health.
But some of my people, given COVID, are going to say that's because you've got money. You can afford all those tests, right? What would you say to someone living in Manchester at the moment who's got breast cancer and can't afford all those tests? How would you suggest they went about their plan?
So you can fast, you can do intermittent fasting, you can change your lifestyle, you can meditate. If you've read Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, You Are the Placebo, you have every chemical in your body that you need to heal. And so that's free. You can do that every day.
Do you use microbiome analysis?
I do.
Do you is there one in particular you use?
I've used uBiome, which they're not in business anymore. I've used Viome, and I've got Biome FX, which I've got the kit. I just haven't done it yet.
Okay, because that's you almost hit the nail on the head. But a lot of them sort of came and went very rapidly, didn't they? I mean, people going to Atlas. Do you have Atlas in America?
No.
No. Okay. There's a lot of controversy about it. Quite often, people send me their microbiome analysis, and I look at it and think, well, I don't know what we could do about that. You're missing something that there just isn't a probiotic for. So I try. But it's always about the actual bugs, and it's about your diet. They go hand in hand. So
Yeah.
you're never going to have nil women with breast cancer. I don't know whether you know this, but there's research that basically, well, first of all, everybody with cancer has lost the volume of good guys, lost strains of good guys. But with breast cancer, usually there's a huge lack of lactobacillus. And there's about 250 members of that family. And women with breast cancer literally don't seem to have much or many members of the families of lactobacillus. But there's research on the rainbow diet showing that if you just use the colourful Mediterranean diet, you can get your lactobacillus up. You don't actually need to pour bugs down your throat. Do you know that?
Exactly. Exactly.
Mary Kelly from Brisbane asked, she's obviously a fan and read loads of yours. She said, how did you heal the sexual abuse trauma that you talk about as being one of the causes of your cancer?
That was very difficult. From the age of 3 to 5 years old, I was sexually abused by a convicted pedophile who was our neighbor. So we're talking like the late 1950s. And the police went door to door in our neighborhood and warned the families about this gentleman next door. But, you know, my parents had troubles of their own, and they, you know, just didn't take note. And I did not realize I was sexually abused until I was in my late 40s. I had one of those repressed memories. And I didn't believe it when I finally saw it in my mind. And I called my mother and my sisters, and they all knew. Nobody had talked about it. And they, you know, my mother even said, how could you remember that? You were like 3, 4, 5 years old. So once I knew, I understood that had happened, and I saw what had happened. I did a lot of work. You know, I read a lot of books on overcoming sexual abuse. I did work with some therapists. I did a lot of tapping, and, you know, just recognized I had to heal that little girl and let her know that she was going to be safe and nobody was ever going to harm her again. Mm-hmm. And it was almost a relief when I learned that, because then it helped me to look back at my life, and I could see why I made so many bad decisions when it came to men and relationships, right? So that was good that it came out, because now I'm happily married. I have a very happy, wonderful, loving relationship, a great husband. And, you know, that's something that I'm grateful that came out. It had to come out and heal.
Now you're where you are. This was observation by something. We follow very similar careers since 2000. I'm very serious. So amazing, the similarities. Someone wrote to me, Sarah Ferguson wrote to me, and she said, how important is your personal attitude in helping people? When I had my PP with Chris, he's so positive. He makes you feel that everybody can beat their cancer. I saw comments like this from your patients too.
Oh, totally, totally. You know, we're the cheerleaders, and I think back on my healing journeys, and I was my own cheerleader, and I also had a team of people who were helping me and supporting me, and you know, it's all about, yes, you can do this, and you know, and letting women know. I mean, one of my themes is never fear breast cancer again. There's no need to fear it. Once you understand what cancer is and what cancer is not, then, you know, you can be the master of your ship and just, you know, live your life like you're going to be vibrantly healthy, and let that vision pull you forward, because that's what you need, is not the fear of the what ifs, but, you know, be focused on how you want your life to look like in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years.
Mm-hmm. What do you say to people? I've got a question from Annabelle Reed Jones, who's one of, excuse me, one of my patients, and what she was talking about was, you've got someone in front of you who has chemo and radio and what have you, and the doctors are telling her this is right and that's wrong. How do you give people the confidence to actually stand up to them?
That has to come from themselves. You know, that they have to learn to draw those boundaries and recognize what they're going to allow in and what they're not going to allow in. And, you know, I call these doctors doom and gloom, where they, you know, they do not give people any hope, And the probability, the probabilities that they talk about is based on statistics of sick people. They don't know what we know. They don't know that if you just improve your vitamin D, your vitamin C, you get fresh air and improve your diet, that your body can heal. They're relying on toxic medicines to make a sick person sicker. So I think once people understand that, and once they gain confidence, once they take in knowledge, they can make a better informed decision. But, some people just do not ever let go of that fear, and they continue to go down that path.
I find it dreadful, sad when people say I've been given 18 months or 3 months or whatever by my doctor.
Yes.
Do they understand? I mean, this was in my speech to oncology. Do you understand what you're doing to that person by saying, I think you've got 6 months. I have one guy at the moment, you've got 6 months to live if you have our drugs for 4 months. Luckily, he couldn't have them. And here we are a year and a bit later after 3 scans, all clear.
Yeah. There you go.
Do they understand what they're doing, though, putting that thought in people's heads? You're going to die in 3 months' time.
They're branding, they're searing that on their subconscious mind, and they're taking lives away. They're removing hope, and it's a crime. It's a crime against humanity. They have no right to.
No, I agree. It's also born out of their ignorance.
Yeah.
That's what's so bad. Right, I've got 4 sort of quick questions from people that came up. You may decide to go over these very quickly. From Sarah Spinks: breast cancer, indole 3 carbinol or dim?
I prefer dim. Just from the research and everything that I've read, there's kind of some iffy research about the I3C, so I prefer dim.
Okay, I don't, but never mind. I watched your 2 free shows. This is from Angela Leaves. I have mold in my house. How do I get rid of it immediately rather than wait for summer? If it's also in me, how do I get rid of it from my body? Mold.
That's a long-winded question and answer. Well, there's things that you can do in your home. Get a really good air filter. You can use things as simple as peppermint oil, baking soda, to be able to clean that mold in your home. In your body, that's kind of an undertaking that I don't know that we have the time to talk about that right now.
Okay. Alison Hall said, how would you start to treat your stage 4 breast cancer with METs if you had it?
Whether you have METs or you don't, it's still the same root cause. Obviously, you want to be very aggressive with your therapies and what you're going to do in your approach. The first step is right here between the ears, because I've seen time and time again, women, it doesn't matter if you have METs to the bones, what stage you're at, it doesn't matter. Stages don't matter. It's how you determine to be very clear about your body's ability to heal.
My patients watching this are going to be all saying, he's put her up to saying that, because I always go, there's a line in golf that the most important distance in golf is the 6 inches between your ears. And I always say, look, stress has got 2 components. There's this bit, and there's also actually cutting your stress hormones, your factual bit. But there's this bit, there's 2 things.
That's right.
Right, just looking at your website, you talk about support through our products. What do you mean by this? So show me your products.
Oh, well, I have a private label product, so all kinds of nutritional support that you can have, different therapies that you can use, everything from, I don't have it with me, but a laser watch, biomat, EMF protection, just different things that you can add to, give you an extra measure of support.
And you have live support in a community.
Yes, we do.
So is that your 108,000 people on your Facebook page, or what is it?
No, I mean, the community, we have a smaller group of community of clients that, join our community, but we have support at Breast Cancer Conqueror. There's actually a live person that you can talk to. We have coaches that you can talk to. So, there's a lot of free information on our website. I've been blogging for 9 years now, so.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right then, $64,000 question at the end of it all. Have you got 3 or so tips for our watchers right now? Three tips you would, you'd say to them, what are the 3 most important things? If anybody watching this, there can be all sorts of cancers watching you right now. But
Okay.
if they
So
had to
number
start all
one,
sorts of stages, go.
So number one, when you are diagnosed, if you're diagnosed, you have time. It's not like you're dying of a heart attack, right? So give yourself time to let that diagnosis sink in and look at your options. Do your research, make an informed decision. Number 2, be very still, be very quiet, listen to that inner voice, because that's where you're going to find your answers. And number 3, surround yourself with a team of people that is going to support you and encourage you on the path, whichever path that you choose, and surround yourself with community and get help. You don't have to be the Lone Ranger and do this by yourself. That's why you have people like Chris and I that are there to support you.
It's quite interesting. We get a lot of nurses in British hospitals saying to the patient, now be positive, dear. And I always say, no, next time they say that to you, you say, no, that's your job. I say, my job's to be thorough. I need to tell you everything. Your job's to be determined. And your husband's job, boyfriend, whatever, it's his job to be positive, not yours. You can't be positive all the time. You need a team of people who give you a lift.
That's right.
I promise we never talked before. To all the people watching this, I promise we never talked. We're on the same path. It's the same story. It's frightening. Yeah. All right. I will leave it there. I'd like to thank you. It's been absolutely wonderful to talk to you, meet you. And I'd like to thank all our audience. And perhaps we'll meet again in the very, very near future. I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
But if there's anything you'd like to add, please do. But otherwise, I'd just really like to thank you. It's been very, very good of you to have you on the show.
No, it's been great, Chris. We've been trying to get together for a while, and because of your life in Thailand and mine in Naples, Florida, it's been a little challenging, but I'm really glad we did. I've always admired your work, as I said, and
likewise.
I really appreciate everything that you're doing.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.